Thank you very much. Welcome to this meeting of Cabinet. My name is Jonathan Lester. I'm leader of the council and will be chairing the meeting today. In addition to those councillors present in the room, we have other councillors joining our meeting remotely, and I will now check that they can see and hear us. So we have Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Leader. I can see you and I can hear you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Toynbee.
Do you mean Councillor Fagan, Councillor Lester?
No, I don't. Councillor Toynbee, can you? No, of course I do. Yeah.
I know you did muddle us up before. I can see and hear you. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's Councillor Toynbee's sunglasses. That's what threw me. Right. Okay. So you can hear us. Okay then. Thank you. Councillor Stark. Let's see if we can get that right.
Yes, I can see and hear you, Leader.
Excellent. And Councillor Bramer.
Yes, they'd like to see and hear everything.
Excellent. So just to confirm that Councillor Bramer is attending via Teams, so is part of the Cabinet and will participate accordingly, but when it comes to voting on items, will be unable to vote. Right, okay. Who else have we got on Teams?
We've got Rachel Gillett.
Yeah. Right, so we've got some officers attending us, and if they're called to speak, well, they can introduce themselves if required. Okay, so right, we also have group leaders in attendance in the room, Councillor Toynbee, for anybody who was querying that, and Councillor Proctor as well. And they're very welcome, and we're joined by all of Cabinet and officers. So I'll now formally open the meeting. The agenda papers and other relevant information for this meeting are available for public viewing on Herefordshire Council's website. The Council is streaming this meeting live on the Herefordshire Council YouTube channel and making a recording. To ensure that the recording quality is maintained, please speak clearly as possible and keep background noise to a minimum. Microphones should be muted when you are not speaking. Only one microphone should be able to be operated at any one time. If you have an issue with your microphone, please let the clerk know, who will allocate you with a new microphone. Please ensure that all devices, electronic devices, are turned to silent. That includes laptops. Others are permitted to film, photograph, and record our public meetings, provided that it does not disrupt the business of the meeting. If any members of the public attending do not wish to be filmed or photographed, please notify a member of staff. Thank you. As we move through the agenda, in addition to discussion by Cabinet members, I will invite group leaders or their representatives to indicate if they wish to provide views and questions from their group on each item. Where appropriate, I can also call upon scrutiny chairpersons to comment on behalf of their committee. We will allow group leaders to speak once on each item. As I said earlier, voting will be undertaken by a show of hands in the room, and only Cabinet members physically present can participate in the vote. Right. Thank you very much. Right, so we go straight to agenda item 1, which is apologies for absence. So can I ask about if we've received any apologies?
We have apologies from Councillor Swinglehurst, I believe, and councillors are Councillor James and Councillor Harvey.
Thank you very much. We note their apologies. Agenda item 2 is declarations of interests. Are there any table A, table B, or any other interests for items on the agenda today? None. Thank you. So we'll move on to agenda item 3, which is minutes of the previous meeting, which was held on the 17th of July. No matters of accuracy have been notified to the monitoring officer. Cabinet members, are you content that the minutes of the 17th of July are an accurate record and should be signed? Yep. Okay. Thank you. So those are approved. Agenda item 4 is to receive any questions from members of the public. Members of the public have the opportunity to submit questions to Cabinet in writing ahead of the meeting. We have received 3 public questions for this meeting, and the responses have been published as a supplement to the agenda papers. Those who have submitted questions have been given the opportunity to submit a written supplementary question or attend the meeting and ask their question live. Supplementary questions are to be no more than 1 minute in length and must include a question. Can I ask if we've received any supplementary questions from members of the public?
We've received one supplementary question from Mr. McKay for Councillor Hercombe. I'll just bring that up on screen. So the question is, will you add a paragraph to the research guidance saying that, i.e. that parishes providing information of CRFs and CRBs came about due to government guidance for parishes providing information for raising their definitive map putting forward these non-statutory terms rather than the statutory RUPP, road used as public path, the research guidance presently making no mention of CRFs and CRBs.
Councillor Hercombe?
Thank you, Mr. McKay, for your supplementary. The research guidance was written to assist those thinking of applying for a definitive map modification order and DMMO. It sets out the different types of evidence that are key to making a good application, and this is the purpose of the document. The terms CRF, carriage road footpath, CRB, carriage road bridleway, and RUPP, road used as a public path, are clearly explained in the glossary of terms. The two documents each have their own purpose, and the amendment suggested is not necessary as the information is covered in the glossary of terms. It does not, therefore, need to be repeated in the research guidance. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question, and thank you, Councillor Hercombe, for the answer. Agenda item 5 is to receive questions from councillors. We have received one question from Councillor Proctor, and the response to the question has been published as a supplement to the agenda papers. But as Councillor Proctor is in the room, we'll now ask if you've got a supplementary question.
I do.
Then please ask your question, Councillor Proctor.
So you assess that 900 units of social housing are needed today to meet the current need for social housing. According to Homes England figures, last year 0 units of social housing were completed in Herefordshire. The year before that, 0 units of social housing were completed in Herefordshire. And I'm very aware that when we talk about housing units, we can just get lost in the numbers, but this is about real people's lives. Just this week, I've spoken to 2 separate people who are in relationship breakups, and one of the things that really terrifies them is, are they going to become homeless as a result of it? Because it's well known that there are not enough houses in the county for the people who live here. The response says, and this is completely true, that the council plan makes housing central to place and growth. What is the administration doing, and how long will we have to wait until the 900 units we need are delivered?
Thank you very much, Councillor Proctor. Councillor Biggs, is that about housing delivery?
Thanks, Leader. Yeah, I mean, we've, as we all know, we now have a cross-party working group working to deliver on this front. We're working on a delivery model to put a housing delivery company in place. We've already delivered on the John Hayder building in the run up to that as a test, so that's terrific. And seeing that, and I think it's worthwhile mentioning, if you don't mind, Leader, that that only today we talked to City Council last night. Cabinet colleagues agreed that we're going to rename. The ambition now is coming through. We're going to rename that John Hayder building to the John Venn building, rename it back to where it was, and celebrate the legacy that John Venn brought to the city. And that's just one, and Buttercross in Leominster is another. So we're leaning in on this space in the right way, the right houses, in the right place, at the right time is what our ambition is, and we're working together to deliver on that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Biggs. And thank you, Councillor Proctor, for the question. Right, agenda item 6 is where we would discuss reports from scrutiny committees, but as there are no reports for us to consider, there is no item to cover here today. Thank you. Agenda item 7. So this is the first main agenda item on the agenda, is to review the report with regard to Q1 performance, how well the council is doing in achieving all of its objectives that are set out. This item begins on page 11 of the agenda pack, and I would like Councillor Stoddard to talk us through the agenda item. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leader. Today I'm very pleased to present the first performance report for financial year 25-26 in respect to the Council Plan for 24-28 and its associated delivery plan for 2025-26. I would like to highlight that the delivery plan has been slightly revised under the delegated authority of the Chief Executive. This report fully supports our vision for Herefordshire and delivering the best for Herefordshire in everything that we do. I would also like to take this opportunity to remind you that whilst we're considering this report in late September, the period that it covers, Q1, comprises of April, May and June this year. I'm very pleased to report that 199 out of the 226 milestones, or 88%, that were due to be in progress during Q1 have either been completed or are on track to be delivered by the end of this financial year. However, the Council has achieved many other successes in Q1 beyond that specified in the delivery plan. We have continued to deliver on our capital investment programme, which comprises of over 100 projects, and the table at para 3 of the report provides some highlights from Q1, and these include the Hereford Transport Hub. The contract with the main contractor was finalised in Q1, and the initial phase of construction was due to commence during Q2, and as we saw, ground was being broken last month. Home Lacey Road active travel improvements. The appointed contractor is mobilising for commencement on site during Q2, and the tender returns are more favourable than pre-construction estimates, allowing the extent of the associated quiet routes south of the river to be expanded. The Western Bypass Phase 1. The design work has been proceeding at pace through Q1 with a view to commencing a contractor procurement process in Q2. The phosphate mitigation and integrated wetlands construction. Construction of the second integrated wetland at Tarrington got underway in Q1 and is progressing well. Employment land in Herefordshire. The detailed design and other key pre-construction activities for Phase 1 of the Ross Enterprise Park was completed in Q1, and this will form the basis for a contractor procurement exercise in Q2. Significant progress has also been made developing opportunities in other market towns, specifically at this stage the Bromyard Old Depot site and the Buttercross building in Leominster. A key decision is imminent in Q2, recommending budget approval for £3.7 million to progress these, with the balance allocated for option development in other market towns. The Shire Hall Restoration Phase 1 and 2 and Library Learning Centre. The procurement completed during Q1 for a contractor to initially deliver the pre-construction services, or PCSA phase, and a preferred contractor has been identified, which will become known early in Q2. The Hereford Museum and Art Gallery. Again, the pre-construction services, or PCSA period, commenced in Q1, and the full design team working to develop the remaining detailed technical REBA 4 design. The Warm Homes Grant. The new Warm Homes Grant retrofit scheme for 25-26 got underway in Q1. Peterchurch Primary School. The new school building planning permission for the new school being granted. Final contractor cost submission was due in July, with the construction contract to be entered into and a proposed start on site based on August 2025. Aylstone School expansion. The planning application is now to be determined at the October Planning Committee, and should approval be received, it is anticipated that works on site will commence in January 26. Hampton Dean Primary School. The extension to the LRC procurement for construction contractor completed and planning approval granted, subject to Secretary of State approval, with a proposed start on site in September 25. The school's capital maintenance programme. 2 projects completed in Q1. That is Peterchurch Primary School drainage and Michael Church Primary School heating, with a further 12 schemes tendered for implementation during the summer period of 25. And lastly, the estate's capital programme improvements. We had 5 projects completed in Q1. What I would now like to do is address the first of the Council Plan themes, that of people. The embedded pie chart in the report shows that of the 87 milestones in the delivery plan, 55 are on track. 10 10 are at risk of missing their deadline, and 12 have not yet started, and 10 are completed. Continuing our focus on a child-friendly Herefordshire, family group conferencing is now available for all families, including those whose needs are met by early help, enabling earlier, family-led decision-making that empowers families to take ownership of their challenges and resolutions. A new residential children's home has been successfully opened and was registered with Ofsted in June 25 despite the recruitment challenges. And this has increased our capacity with a second home on track to open in September 2025. This expansion strengthens local placement sufficiency, reducing reliance on out-of-area or high-cost independent placements. Progress continues on the development of a new build special free school as part of the Department for Education's free school programme, and while we await further detail from the DfE regarding the project timeline, the Council remains committed and ready to move forward with the appointment of an Academy Trust as soon as confirmation is received. Turning to our adult services, the Herefordshire Connect cross-sector referral platform is now ready to launch as a pilot with identified partner organisations supporting the Household Support Fund. Work is progressing to improve the support people receive in the community after being discharged from hospital, which will include access to reablement services. A review process and supporting audit tools have also been developed in collaboration with health and care system partners. I'd now like to turn to the second of our themes, that of place. The pie chart in the report shows that of the 89 milestones in the delivery plan, 64 are on target, 8 are at risk of missing a deadline, 5 have been completed, 10 are not yet started, and 2 are paused. A countrywide tree, hedgerow and woodland strategy to value nature and uphold environmental standards has now been finalised following extensive consultation and engagement with stakeholders. To support its successful countrywide adoption, a launch and adoption event is being planned for September. The review of the Herefordshire Cultural Strategy 2019-2029 is progressing well with partnership with the Herefordshire Cultural Partnership team. And following a successful consultation with stakeholders and partners, a refreshed vision and set of priorities have been drafted. An update on the progress was shared at the Connected Communities Scrutiny Panel in June 2025. As part of our commitment to reducing waste, increasing reuse and boosting recycling rates, plans to introduce a separate food and a garden waste collection service are progressing. The rollout of these services is dependent on confirmation of new burdens of funding from central government, which is still awaited. Moving now to the third of our themes, growth, the embedded chart shows that of the 39 milestones in the delivery plan, 27 are on target, 5 are at risk of missing a deadline, 5 have been completed, and 2 are not yet started. A key step has been taken to support residents in accessing skills development, training and employment opportunities. A Cabinet member decision has now been made to enable delivery of the 25-26 programme. And this programme will help people across Herefordshire gain the skills and confidence that they need to enter or progress in the workforce, supporting economic growth, reducing inequalities and improving quality of life for individuals and communities. As part of our commitment to supporting Hereford City and our market towns as vibrant, thriving hubs, we are continuing to explore opportunities to improve regional connectivity and economic growth. We are currently awaiting the outcome of modelling by Transport for Wales on a proposed fast rail service between Cardiff and Manchester, which will help assess the impact on local line capacity. In parallel, the outcome of proposed housing allocation sites for the Regulation 18 consultation will help inform that appropriate business case. These developments are key to shaping future infrastructure and investment decisions that will benefit residents, businesses and communities across the county. The fourth and final theme of transformation in the embedded pie chart shows we have got 40 milestones with 28 on target, 2 at risk of missing a deadline, 5 have been completed and 5 are not yet started. As part of our commitment to attracting and retaining an excellent workforce, several improvements have been made to enhance the recruitment and onboarding experience. The Council continues to invest in its property assets to ensure they're well maintained and to reduce the long-term cost of reactive repairs. Good progress is made in completing estates and schools capital programmes from previous years, and a number of new projects within the 25 to 28 programme have now been commenced and are on track to be delivered within the year. The Office of Local Government, or OFLOG, has now closed, and the Local Authority Data Explorer model has now been removed. MHCLG announced in July that they are launching a new local government outcomes framework which will align with the key national priorities ranging from preventing homelessness and rough sleeping to community safety and satisfaction. The outcomes of these will be underpinned by metrics to measure progress. However, Herefordshire Council is currently working on a response and also considering the alignment of the Herefordshire Council's delivery plan outcome metrics with the metrics proposed by MHCLG. When this work has been completed, the new outcomes framework will be shared with Cabinet. In the meantime, we will continue to report the following top 10 indicators to demonstrate a meaningful indication of our latest performance. So key performance indicator 1 is the percentage of service users aged 65 plus discharged from hospital into Home First who are still at home 91 days after discharge. The Q1 projection was 80% and the Q1 actual figure was 76%. The percentage of children and young people social work assessments completed within timescale of 45 days, Q1 projection was 85% and the Q1 actual was 74.43%. The percentage of children in care who are an up-to-date review, our Q1 projection 95%, the Q1 actual figure 99.7%. The percentage of major planning applications dealt with within 13 weeks or 16 weeks if subject to an environmental impact assessment or with an agreed extension, our Q1 projection was 70% and our Q1 actual was 90.91%. The percentage of non-major, minor and other planning applications dealt within 8 weeks, target was 80% and we achieved 79.84%. The number of kilograms of waste that is not sent to reuse, recycling or composting, our target for the year to date March 25 was 480 kilograms and unfortunately we achieved 494.51 kilograms. Number of affordable homes delivered, target was 86, we delivered 133. Number of people rough sleeping, target was 5, unfortunately we achieved 8. And the value of grants awarded to businesses to support viability and enable growth through the UK Shared Prosperity Fund was shown as 0, and we'll have a point on that in a minute. The average day's sickness per FTE within the council, target was 9, we achieved 8.37. I would also like to update in regards to the value of grants measure. The UK Shared Prosperity Fund and Rural England Prosperity Fund are key tools for supporting local business growth and resilience. And while no grants were awarded in Q1, this reflects the planned focus on setting up the schemes, delivering guidance and inviting applications. The first grants are expected to be awarded from Q2 onwards, ensuring that funding is delivered effectively and reaches businesses that can make the most impact in supporting local economic development. Appendix A to the report provides the refreshed delivery plan for 25-26 with Q1 updates and includes the full detailed status of all 226 milestones contained within the delivery plan. In conclusion, this report highlights the continuing good work that Herefordshire Council is carrying out in support of all of our residents, and I'd now like to invite all my Cabinet colleagues to endorse both it and its single recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stoddart, for a very comprehensive assessment of all the performance that's been going on in the council, especially from Q1. There's a lot in there, lots happening, and lots of very good projects are being delivered. Right, Councillor Gandy.
Thank you, Leader. I'd just like to mention 2 or 3 points within the adult social care area. So I'm pleased to confirm that the evaluation of the technology-enabled care pilots that we undertook last year has been completed. This evaluation is feeding into the development of our business as usual programme moving forward to support people to remain in their own homes. The expressions of interest for the Community Spaces Capital Grant scheme has been assessed and the successful applicants have been invited to submit full applications and business plans, and we look forward to receiving those. And finally, the significant work started in Q1 and continues around our transformation programme for people with learning disabilities, including supported accommodation and community activities.
Excellent. Thank you very much for highlighting those, Councillor Gandy. Any other Cabinet members? Councillor Powell.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Councillor Stoddart. Just similarly to Councillor Gandy, just a couple of points to build on the extensive information that Peter has given us. The paragraph 7 references family group conferences now being available. In fact, they've been delivered for well over a year now. So during the year 24-25, we were involved in 127 family group conferences, and as a reminder, the Cabinet Family Group Conference is a family-led decision-making process where extended friends and family come together to create a plan for a child. It goes beyond a single meeting. It is a structured process supported by an independent coordinator who works with the family to prepare and facilitate the conference. Children are involved, often with the support of an advocate, and participation is entirely voluntary. Family group conferences are used in a wide range of situations, including preventative services, where there are safeguarding concerns, possibly in the lead up to court proceedings, in certain educational circumstances, for example, where there are challenges with truancy and exclusion, and indeed when there are youth justice and restorative approaches. Families are also offered a review family group conference at about 3 months later, or at the time that is agreed, where they and the practitioners revisit the plan to reflect on what is working, what needs adjusting, and how best to move forwards. So of those 127, last year, 84 were the subject of such a review. And of course, family group conferences are only one process by which we offer help and support to children and their families, but in my view do show and reinforce our collective commitment to work restoratively. That's about family group conferences, and if I could just provide a more current update on social work assessments. So the social work assessment within timescales measure is on completion, and it's in line with the national definition. Within the service, we also monitor additional data for our local assurance, including visits to children within the assessments and any completed assessments over the 45 days. As at the 1st of September, the service has no social work assessments that are over 45 days. On average, 80% of children are visited within the first 5 days of the assessment starting, and our social work timeliness during July and August has been at 85%, the national average being 83%. And of course, the full quarter will be reported at the end of quarter 2.
Thank you very much for that added information. That's really positive. Right. Okay. Any other Cabinet members? Councillor Hercombe.
Yeah, I just wanted to provide an update on the flood risk response programme, which is currently listed as amber. We have held the PGC, we have consulted with colleagues, we've improved the report on the basis of that, and the report was published and the decision made this month. So that funding is now available to be spent. The Section 19 flood reports should be due back in draft form this month for some of them. Some of them have already been tabled, and we're going out and consulting parishes again. So that money should be being spent in the coming months, and we should see delivery. I'd also like to mention the Public Realm contract. That is on track for final submissions to be received by the end of this month, with a view to awarding the contract in December, which should be welcome news for everyone. And then just on the parish council grant schemes, we are the deadline for the drainage grant is the 28th of September, and it looks like we will be assigning the entire pot of funding out. We've had quite high demand from parishes, so that's good news.
That's all excellent as well. Thank you, Councillor Hercombe. Any other Cabinet members? If not, I will then go to group leaders for their comments on Q1 performance reporting. I think we'll start. Councillor Davis, would you like to start? If you have anything to add or ask questions.
Thank you, Leader. Yes. True Independents are pleased to see that the Council is delivering on its projects, and especially good to see ground broken on the long-awaited transport hub.
It is very noteworthy that across the 4 council plan themes of people, place, growth and transformation, that there is no red indicators, and officers are to be congratulated for this. However, the red assessments on the social work assessment is disappointing, as is the red against the number of people sleeping rough. But well done to all, and a very positive report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davis, for that feedback. And next group leader, Councillor Proctor.
Thank you, Leader. I had concerns about the reporting on delivery plans last year, and it hasn't changed, so I have the same concerns this year. And my major concern is that the report aligns activity with delivery, and I think that is a problem. I accept it shows that the council is extremely busy, but it's very difficult to see what the council has actually delivered, what impact that will have, and I worry that that means that there's a risk of not being clear from the Cabinet about what you're trying to achieve. Agreeing a strategy is important, but it is not delivery. So it's great that the tree, hedgerow and woodland strategy has been delivered. It took a year, but it hasn't led to a tree yet being put in the ground. It will do, I'm sure. Just out of interest, when is the launch event that is supposed to be in September? Because I certainly would like to go. There are some things in there which are actually about delivery. So family group conferencing being rolled out for everybody, that has a real impact on real people's lives. Opening a children's home in September, has it been opened? That has a real impact on people's lives. But it gets mixed in with lots of steps along the way. And similarly, the way that KPIs are reported, I think, misses important information. So the first 2 KPIs, we have the social work assessments at red, though over the past 5 quarters, that has steadily improved. So it's still not hitting target, but it shows considerable improvement. We've had the percentage of people still at home 91 days after discharge has been continually amber, but in fact it's bounced around, not quite hitting target for the past 5 quarters. Now that may be all right, but that's not how, it's not clear in the way that this is reported. And finally, I had hoped that this year you would start to talk about the outcomes linked to your activity, but that hasn't appeared in the report. I think that's very disappointing.
Thank you for those comments, Councillor Proctor. And Councillor Toynbee.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, we had similar comments as Councillor Proctor about the tree, hedgerow and woodland strategy. We're really pleased that that's been finalised, and we also were wondering about the launch. And I did Control F on the papers for today, and there are 285 instances of the word strategy. So we're really keen for this to move from strategy into action, as I'm sure we all are. So we'd be interested to know if how the strategy is going to be incorporated into the new public realm contract. Secondly, on paragraph 16 for the People, Thrive and Workforce strategy, we feel that a key part of enhancing the onboarding process and building a motivated workforce is encouraging staff to come into Plough Lane so that they can get to know each other face to face. So we're really keen that this happens. There do seem to be still a lot of empty desks, so it would be good to know how we're doing on that. And finally, as Councillor Stoddart mentioned, the paragraphs 18 to 23 about the government outcome frameworks. Green councillors will be delighted, as I expect lots of colleagues will be, if this does indeed mean a move away from hundreds of various little pots and grants and funds and all the waste of time and energy and resources that involves. So we hope that will happen, and we look forward to seeing the response that we're putting together for that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any more group leaders? No? Right, okay. Councillor Stoddart, there was a couple of comments there from Councillor Proctor to talk about assessing the impact of all of the delivery that you've highlighted for, what was it, 10 minutes? So would you like to respond to Cabinet about your thoughts about that, capturing impact of all the delivery that's just been highlighted?
To address Councillor Proctor's comments, it's a performance report on a delivery plan. I mean, I don't know how more specific on delivery we can be. I did actually mention with the officers about the use of the outcomes plan. We came up with we chose a small number of delivery items that we're going to look at, but actually it was proving to be more problematic for Q1, and we're expecting to have a draft version of the outcomes for the Q2 report in a few months' time. But it's a delivery plan, and we're measuring delivery. I can't see what Councillor Proctor's main issue is with it. We're delivering things, and we're measuring how they're being delivered. It is a performance report.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe though, moving forward, when we report on Q2, Q3, going through, we could reflect on how else we could present impacts of delivery. I think that'd be a good way of looking at it in view of the feedback that we received there.
Yes, Leader. So I've spoken with Jess, who drafts the report, and as I say, we looked at a number of KPIs that we could put against an outcome. But it didn't look particularly good, and therefore we're still reviewing it. Councillor Proctor mentioned this, I think, at SMB a few months ago. We said we'd look at it. We have looked at it. Unfortunately, we didn't get quite to the point that we wanted to put it in the Q1 report. But I'm expecting, and I hope that in the Q2 report, he will see that outcomes table where he'll be able to see where it goes to.
Great. Well, that sounds like it's being accounted for and will be introduced as we go through the year on quarter performance reporting. Okay, and the launch event. Does any Cabinet member want to comment on that was referenced?
No, Councillor Swinglehurst isn't here, but I'm sure she'd certainly be able to inform you of that. I think the decision is due to actually be taken in October, not in September. But obviously, as this is a Q1 report, it probably hasn't factored in that slight amendment.
Okay, thank you very much. And also, the tree planting strategy, is that going to be reflected in the public realm contract?
So I'll pick this up with our director who's looking at the public realm. Obviously, everything we needed was reflected in the tender documentation, and as part of that, there'd be a degree of social value, and I'd expect this would have been picked up there. I will check and get back to you there.
Okay, and there was a comment about the commitment to attracting and retaining an excellent workforce. And Councillor Stoddard, would you agree with me that it was very encouraging to see the feedback that we had on the staff surveys? And one of the things that was attractive and appealed to members of staff was flexible working arrangements with regard to a good work-life balance, and I think that's important, isn't that? But it's certainly true, though, that having people in a building can really lead to team building. So it's getting that balance right, is it not?
Yes, it very much is. And later on, I'll be presenting the CPC report, and it talks about the impact of our quality of staff that we've spoken to. So to address Councillor Toynbee's point, it is actually paying benefit, and we're getting good quality officers coming through.
And Councillor Davis mentioned the two red items, and we've got updates on that, haven't we? Okay then, if there are no further comments with regard to the Q1 update, for all those Cabinet members in the room, I'll propose from the Chair that we accept the report. All in favour? Okay, thank you very much. So we now go to agenda item 8, which is the Q1 budget report. So this is to report the forecast position for the 2025-26 budget at Q1, June 2025, including explanation and analysis of the drivers for any material budget variances and to outline current and planned recovery activity to reduce the forecast overspend. This item begins on page 43 of the agenda pack, and I would like Councillor Stoddart to take us through the item. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leader. Once again, I'm very pleased to present this Q1 budget report to you today. And whilst the national financial picture and that of our local authority neighbours remains very poor, I am very proud of the financial reputation that Herefordshire has built up during the period of this Conservative-led administration. This reputation has been achieved through strong and rigorous financial controls and robust leadership by council officers and this Conservative-led administration. And further evidence of this is the quote in the recently published Local Government Authority Corporate Peer Challenge report, which states that the council's finances are currently in a good base position. Furthermore, earlier today, the council's accounts for the year ended 31 March 2025 were signed off by external auditors, and we therefore expect to be the very first council in the country to receive this sign-off for the second time in 2 years. This is a valuable source of external assurance over the council's financial reporting and budget monitoring arrangements at a crucial time in the financial cycle, giving confidence to members and residents alike that the figures and the balances that inform the budget setting process for 26-27 are true, fair and free from error. Turning to the report, the forecast 2025-26 outturn shows a net overspend of £4.3 million at Q1 before management action, which we believe will estimate at 3.3 million and therefore reduces the forecast overspend for 25-26 to £1 million. I would like to remind you all that our approved net revenue budget for 25-26 is £231.5 million, which includes planned savings of £3.9 million. This report presents the first revenue forecast outturn position for the financial year and highlights the continuing budget pressures to support increases in demand across social care budgets, temporary accommodation and special educational needs and disabilities transport services. I'd also like to highlight that at Q1 we have 25% actual figures and 75% forecasted figures. The Q1 revenue outturn position shows a forecast variance from budget of £4.3 million, which equates to 1.9% of net budget before management action. And this planned management activity will subsequently reduce this forecast overspend to £1 million. This variance represents cost pressures of 4.3 million, comprising of 2.9 million in-year net cost pressures and 1.4 million pounds of brought forward saving targets assessed as at risk at Q1. The forecast outturn position for the year by directorate is shown in detail at Table 1 in the report. I have stated previously that we will take vigorous actions to achieve the outstanding savings, and recovery actions that we expect to reduce the forecast overspend by Q4 include allocation of the budget resilience reserve to mitigate the impact of cost pressures and volatility in demand-led budgets, continued review of the council's contract arrangements and shareholding in Hoople Limited, and action to challenge all forecast expenditure over the remainder of the financial year through directorate expenditure control panels. You will recall that the Budget Resilience Reserve was established by us in 24-25 to manage the impact of in-year cost pressures and volatility in demand across social care budgets. In the financial year ended 24-25, £4 million of this reserve was applied to cost pressures in the community wellbeing budget, which has subsequently reduced the balance carried forward to the current financial year to £7 million. As detailed in the earmarked reserves and general balances policy statement for 25-26, the allocation of reserve funding in each financial year will require application to the Council's S151 officer together with Cabinet approval to ensure that appropriate measures have been taken within directorates. At the end of each financial year, any unused balance will then be considered as part of the annual review of earmarked reserves. I would also like to remind you all that expenditure controls, first implemented during 23-24, remain in place to support recovery activity and robust financial control over expenditure in 25-26. Directorate panels will continue to review expenditure on goods and services, as well as changes in staffing arrangements to maintain the increased level of rigour and challenge over expenditure for the remainder of this financial year. And Table 2 in the report shows the updated forecast revenue positions by Directorate and shows the projected overspend of £1 million. I would now like to turn to address the issue of savings. Council approved a total of £3.9 million of savings for 25-26, which comprised targets in the Children and Young People's Directorate, which was aligned to the refresh of the 3-year financial plan. A review of the delivery and status of the 25-26 approved savings have now been undertaken, informed by planned and actual activity in the year to date, to determine the savings targets at risk of in-year delivery. This review confirms that 1.6 million, or 40% of the total approved savings target for the year, has been delivered in Q1, with a further £2.3 million, or 60%, assessed as on target or in progress for the year, and no savings are currently assessed as at risk. A breakdown of the 25-26 approved savings is shown in Table 3 of the report, with further details on the status of individual saving targets being set out in Appendix D, Annex 1. Savings not delivered recurrently in previous years have been carried forward into 25-26 for continued monitoring of delivery. As we set out in the 24-25 Q4 outturn report to Cabinet in June this year, a focused review of the original proposals and planned activity had been undertaken during Q1, and revised savings plans have been developed where appropriate to confirm activity to deliver these savings in 25-26. The status of the delivery of the revised savings, which total £11.9 million, is shown in Table 4 of the report, with further details on the status of individual saving targets set out in Appendix D, Annex 2. And a reconciliation of changes to these individual targets is shown in Appendix D, Annex 3. As at the 30th of June 25, £5.9 million, or 15% of the £11.9 million brought forward savings, have been delivered, with a further £4.6 million, or 38%, forecast to be delivered in year, with £1.4 million, or 12%, remaining at risk, and with further focused activity underway to resolve or mitigate in year. I must emphasise that the delivery of savings in full and on time is critical to ensure the 25-26 revenue outturn position is balanced and to prevent further pressure on future years' budgets. Progress on the delivery of savings and mitigations will continue to be monitored and will be reported in the next Budget Monitoring Report to Cabinet. I'd now like to address the issue of the Dedicated Schools Grant, or DSG. The cumulative DSG deficit is accounted for as an unusable reserve on the Council's balance sheet, as permitted via statutory instrument, which will remain in place until the 31st of March 2028. This enables all local authorities to ring-fence the DSG deficit from the overall financial position in the statutory accounts. Beyond the period of the statutory override, the expectation is that any balance on the DSG unusable reserve will transfer back to the Council's total earmarked reserves. On the 1st of April 25, the cumulative deficit brought forward was £20 million. A deficit budget of £20.2 million has been approved for 25-26, and if expenditure is contained within the approved budget, the cumulative DSG deficit will total £40.2 million by 31 March 26. Activity data which informs the forecast will be updated in Q2 to reflect any changes in demand in this current academic year commencing September 25. And a revised forecast position will be reported in the Q2 report to Cabinet in November. Measures to contain the deficit and mitigate future cost and demand pressures continue to be managed by the service through the DSG Deficit Management Plan, and the financial impact of agreed mitigations will be monitored and reported throughout the year as part of the Council's routine budget monitoring process. Turning now to our capital outturn. The 25-26 approved capital budget of £155.3 million has been revised to £175.4 million and includes £11.7 million of unspent project budgets brought forward from 24-25, the removal of a project totalling £6 million and £14.5 million of additional grants. And a summary breakdown is shown in Table 5 of the report. The forecast spend position at Q1 is £117.9 million, which represents a variance of 57.5 against the capital programme budget of £175.4 million. This in-year forecast variance represents £0.3 million of underspend on project budgets and £57.2 million in respect of project budgets to be rolled forward for delivery in 26-27. Explanations for variances from budget by individual project are detailed in Appendix B, Table A. In accordance with best practice, capital budgets will be reprofiled at Q2 to reflect the revised expected profile of project delivery. Forecast spend will be monitored by reference to the reprofiled budget from Q2 for the remainder of the financial year. The full capital programme, analysed by project for current and future years, can be seen in detail at Appendix B, Table B. Forecast delivery of the Council's capital programme for 25-26 assumes a requirement to undertake external borrowing, and provision was made in the approved 25-26 revenue budget to support this borrowing. Cash flow forecasting arrangements have been strengthened in 25-26 to consider the cash flow requirements of the capital programming, managing the timing and affordability of loan interest payments, minimising cash balances and utilising internal borrowing where possible in accordance with the Council's Treasury Management Strategy. You will recall that when I presented the budget in February, I mentioned that we were looking at the capital programme through an additional lens, which would see capital projects address key revenue budget pressures. The delivery of these projects on time and within budget is critical to ensuring maximum impact on the 25-26 revenue outturn position and to mitigate pressure in future years. These projects are detailed in Table 6 of the report and include home to school and send transport cost pressures. It's the Council school transport fleet of £0.4 million and the high needs grant of £2.1 million. Under social care demand and cost pressures, it's children's residential homes at £0.4 million, and temporary accommodation demand and cost pressures, it's the acquisition fund for housing provision at £5 million and empty property investment and development at £0.6 million. Repair and maintenance budgets, the estate's building improvement programme works and the highways and public realm investment works. I would also like to remind you all that the delivery of capital projects is monitored by individual project boards, the Major Projects Forum and the monthly Directorate Budget Boards. Key risks to the capital programme include delays in delivery, limitations in market capacity resulting in a reduced number of bidders, reduced competition and choice, and inflationary increases to costs. Where capital projects are funded by external grant, there's a further risk that the delays in delivery mean that grant conditions and time constraints cannot be met, resulting in the loss or clawback of the grant. All projects are monitored robustly to mitigate the risks to project budgets, delivery of benefits, and potential loss of grant funding. In conclusion, this Q1 outturn report and the comments from the LGA Corporate Peer Challenge clearly shows Herefordshire as an outlier of financial stability in these very challenging times, and continues to show that we're meeting our vision for Herefordshire by delivering the best in everything we do. I would now like to invite my Cabinet colleagues to endorse this report and its 3 recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stoddart. I'm sure all of our Cabinet members will be happy to endorse the report. And I would just like to say from the Chair, thank you to you and to Rachel and to all of the finance team for doing sterling work on making sure that every penny is accounted for and that we're clearly focused on making sure that the money is spent accordingly and every penny is accounted for. When you talk about the in the first table, you talk about the variance forecast of 4.3 million, and you identify that as 1.9% of the actual budget. When we've undertaken management action, which this council has been very good at ensuring it is undertaken, the revised forecast falls to £1 million. What percentage does that signify in terms of the overall? 0.43. So 0.43. 0.43% of the budget variance. That to me sounds like an all-time record in terms of reporting variances. Is that not the case?
It is. It's the lowest figure we've had. I think if I go back, last year was 8.7 million. Year before that, 15.2. So significantly lower.
And as I say, the lowest I can ever remember. Right. Okay. So thank you to the finance team, to Rachel and yourself, Councillor Stoddart. And can I ask Cabinet members if they wish to comment? No, I think the report was so comprehensive. Yep. Okay then. Well, I'll go to group leaders. Any group Oh, sorry, Councillor Biggs.
Yeah, I think it is worth us just recognising that they're being the first to be audited through in 2 years on the bounce. It's frankly an incredible achievement. Yeah, we often say in this room that Herefordshire doesn't sing and praise itself often enough. Well, you know, that's incredible, and that should be, if there's anything to be reported out today, that should be the news that gets reported, because that's an incredible achievement by a finance team. You know, we're relatively small council. We've made all these cuts. We've made all the changes to try and stay and fight against that tide of not having the finance we should have to be able to deliver for the people of Herefordshire. And they've got a team that are fighting, digging deep into it and delivering, you know, at frankly nationally significant rate. I think we should be really proud of this team.
We'd be proud enough if we were the first in the country for just 1 year, but to be the first in the country for 2 years running, that is an incredible achievement. I agree. Well said, Councillor Biggs. Councillor Price.
I'm sure a lot of people listening to this online or listening in the room, finances can be very boring. It's been put together in such a way that the detail and the way it's presented actually makes me very proud that this administration, working with the team in-house, is I can't give enough praise to it, because if you are not in control of your finances, you've got nowhere to go. And you know, times are difficult, and it's the fact that we are at the top of the tree in the financial local authorities is down to the hard work that you guys over there have been doing. And Rachel and your team, just take it back to all of the members of your team. We appreciate the effort that's gone into these reports, and let's hope we can manage to keep on budget for the rest of the year as forecast. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Price. Any further comments? If not, I will go to group leaders. Oh, photo finished there, but I think Councillor Proctor was first.
Okay, thank you. Yes, we agree that the council does understand where it spends its money, and that is not necessarily that common in local government and is a significant strength for the council. I can't allow the discussion about the historically low variances to pass without noting that that's because of the innovation of dipping into reserves in year, which has only just been introduced. It is very gratifying to read a quarterly budget report again and just sort of skim over the children's services section, which is a sign of, I think, real control over finances in that area. There is increasing complexity in this report. So you're having to track planned savings for this year, savings that were not delivered last year, which have been brought forward, overspends for this year, which are being dealt by either actual management actions or dipping into reserves. And there clearly is a lot going on to manage the finances of the organisation. And I'm sure the Cabinet would say that this is an example of a swan sailing serenely with a lot of activity going underneath, but you might also worry that it is the sign of a ship where there are increasing numbers of leaks happening and people desperately trying to patch them. But the situation is, you know, is good. So well done, I would say on that. I could say a lot about the capital programme. It's probably the same thing that I would always say about the capital programme. So I'll just. It surprises me that the capital programme is always moved in one direction. You would have thought that, obviously, when we predict how long it's going to take to deliver a school, there are a set of unknowables. So you have to make an assessment of when that will happen. You would have thought that if we were good at predicting that half the time we would have thought that it would take longer than it did, and half the time we'd thought it would be shorter than it did. But we always seem to have underestimated how long it will take. And so I'd ask the Cabinet to reflect on what is it doing within the system that is causing people to bring forward optimistic scenarios but never pessimistic scenarios. We, and I personally, welcome this reporting of the link to capital to revenue, and I'd like to see that strengthened in future reports. But I think it is really good to see what we expect to see saved on revenue, but also what we might expect to see a cost on revenue from capital investments.
Thank you, Councillor Proctor. Councillor Toynbee.
Yes, thank you. The Green Group also welcomes detail on finance, so thank you for that. Just very briefly on the dedicated schools grant, as Councillor Stoddart mentioned, the DSG deficit is absolutely huge, coming up for 40 million. And statutory instrument sounds a bit like a technical detail, but it's really important that we all as councillors understand that without it, it would be impossible to balance our books, and we have a duty to balance our books. And it would be impossible for us to do that even if we raided all our reserves. And, you know, it's a huge thing that it's important that people understand. And it's also a sign of failure of Conservative and Labour governments that they've had to resort to this fix to make things work. And secondly, the Greens welcome capital projects and investments, especially in assets and services such as school transport, in-county provision for short breaks and acquisition of properties so that we can provide emergency accommodation. So we welcome that, and we support public assets and in-house services, not only because, as is mentioned in the report, they can mitigate so-called cost pressures, but also because they're the right thing to do for Herefordshire. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments, Councillor Toynbee. Councillor Davis, do you have any comments or questions?
Yes, thank you, Leader. Well done to everyone for limiting the projected overspend to 1 million. It is, however, concerning to see that adult social services required 2.8 million of budget reserve. And it would be good to have reassurance that the Directorate are seeking to control demand for their services. Please keep up the good work. Brilliant report. Thank you.
Many thanks, Councillor Davis. And Cabinet, in perhaps in reverse order, will take that point about the £2.8 million overspend and the control on demand of services and the understanding of the requirements and demands on adult services. Councillor Gandhi, would you like to comment to Cabinet about that?
Thank you. Yes, we are absolutely doing everything we can to reduce demand on our services. And as I spoke earlier about the technology things that we're putting in place, that is not just to support people who are already receiving domiciliary care, that is to support people so that they don't need domiciliary care, which is a big chunk of the money that we spend. So the more people that we can get to take on the technological stuff that we have, the less likely they are to require domiciliary care or eventually residential care. So we absolutely recognise the problem and we're doing all we can to solve it. But it is what it is. We're an ageing population in Herefordshire, and we are going through a situation at the moment where, due to post-war baby boom, we are all, a lot of people are reaching 80 plus and requiring care. But we are doing everything we can.
Councillor Gandy, as I understand it, there have been technologies, alarms, things like that older residents have utilised for a long time. But the level of technology and the improvements in the technology is increasing at an exponential rate, and some of that has only been introduced relatively recently. So I look ahead to 5 years' time when all of this technology is fully utilised. It will have a dramatic effect on the situation, and we're only just starting to see that at pace. But I anticipate within the next 5 years, this technology will have transformed the way we care for people and create that independence that will really reduce the dependency on council's expenditure. Yeah. Okay. Councillor Stoddart.
Thank you, Leader. To respond to Councillor Proctor's comments, innovation of dipping into reserves in year, that was something that the previous administration did at the end of the year. However, what we've adopted is strong and rigorous financial controls where we are proactive, not reactive, and we do things in a planned, measured and responsible use of our reserves. There's certainly no desperation, and what we're looking to do is to actually preempt things. It's a planned expenditure, as I explained in the report very clearly. We will look at that in Q2, and the funds will not actually be allocated until at least Q2, possibly even later. So it's reactive and we're under control. To pick up on Councillor Toynbee's point, the DSG is a national issue, and that was acknowledged this morning at the Revenue and Audit Group, the Audit and Governance Group this morning by Grant Thornton, who have said that our projected DSG of £40 million pales into insignificance when you look at other councils who are in sometimes £200 or £300 million of DSG at the same time. Not saying that we haven't got a problem, it is, but it's a national issue that national government will have to address. Thank you.
I think that obviously what government must address, any government must address, is adequate school funding and adequate funding for local government. And to address those two very complex and difficult issues, if they do that, then we welcome that entirely. Right, okay, if there are any more comments, no, from Cabinet members, then you have the quarter budget report in front of you with the recommendations accordingly. Councillor Stoddart, are you going to propose the 3 recommendations? Yes, I'll second that. All Cabinet members in the room agreed? Right, okay, thank you very much. We now move on to agenda item 9, medium-term financial strategy. This is the update to Cabinet. So this is to provide an update on the key headlines from the spending review that was done in June 2025 and the potential impact of local authority funding reform on the Council's future financial position. This item begins on page 81 of the agenda pack, and Councillor Stoddart, if you wouldn't mind, if we could ask you again to introduce the item and talk us through it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leader. In the budget papers approved by full council in February early this year, we highlighted the risk and the uncertainty in the MTFS in respect of future funding arrangements as a result of planned reform by central government. We advised that we would review the MTFS to consider updated estimates of funding as information was released. The report that I bring before you today delivers on that plan to update the MTFS and seeks to provide an update on the key headlines from the spending review of June 2025 and the potential impact of local authority funding reform on this council's future financial position. This was highlighted in the corporate peer report, and this report is therefore addresses the recommendation that I'll highlight to you later today. Full Council approved the 25-26 revenue budget and medium-term financial strategy, or MTFS, for the 4-year period to 28-29 on the 7th of February 2025. I would like to remind you that the approved MTFS highlighted significant uncertainty in terms of future funding arrangements and allocations across local authorities over the medium-term period as a result of planned funding reform and the reset of business rates during 2025. The MTFS, informed by assumptions and estimates of funding available at the time of preparation, identified an estimated potential funding gap for the medium-term period from 25 to 29 of £4.2 million and recognised the need to revise the MTFS to reflect updated levels of funding as information is received from government. This report provides Cabinet with an update on the changes to the financial and economic context in which the Council is required to operate, including key headlines from the spending review of 25 and the potential impacts of local authority funding reform on the Council's future financial position. It also sets out the approach and timetable for the development of the 26-27 budget and the MTFS for the 4-year period 26-27 to 29-30. And they are to be recommended for approval by full Council in February 26. The key priorities for the Council in the current financial year of 25-26 are the delivery of services within the approved revenue budget, robust monitoring of in-year performance against the approved revenue budget to ensure timely identification of appropriate management recovery actions, delivery of savings comprising of £3.9 million of savings in the approved 25-26 revenue budget and £11.9 million of savings not delivered recurrently in prior years, which have been carried forward for delivery in 25-26. And finally, development of the 25-26 revenue and capital investment budgets, review and update of the MTFS. The updated estimate of funding represents a potential loss to the 25-26 baseline position of £12 million over the 3-year period to 28-29. Before work to challenge and review the current previous estimate of net expenditure requirements has been undertaken. The impact of this reduction in funding through the Fair Funding Review is a revised estimated funding gap of £27.3 million in 26-27, rising to £54.4 million in 28-29. The MTFS and the underlying income and expenditure estimates and assumptions will be further reviewed, modelled and tested over the budget development period through to February 26 as new information becomes available from the anticipated Fair Funding Review 2 and the business rates research. And this work will also model and incorporate the impact of transformation and planned savings and efficiencies on the estimated funding gap in 26-27 and future years. On the 11th of June 2025, the Chancellor of the Exchequer announced the outcome of the Spending Review 2025. The Spending Review sets out revenue funding allocations for each government department over the next 3 years, with an additional 4th year for capital allocations. And this is the first multi-year spending review since 2021. The key announcements relevant to local authorities included local government funding, settlement indications, transformation fund allocations for local government, adult social care, children's social care, pothole funding, council tax reform, education, dedicated schools grant and special educational needs and disabilities deficits. The Minister of Housing, Communities and Local Government, the consultation on local authority funding reform through the Local Government Finance Settlement 26-27 ran from June to August 25. And the Fair Funding Review 2 attempts to refresh the methodology for distributing a fixed pot of funding between local authorities covered by the Local Government Finance Settlement. The last time that the underlying distribution methodology was refreshed through changes to formula and data was in 2013, at the time the business rates retention system was set up. This means that the last full assessment of relative needs and resources is 12 years old, and the relationship between the assessment and actual allocations through the Settlement Funding Assessment, or SFA, has weakened over that corresponding period. Furthermore, the government is considering rolling in further grants, including nearly £10 billion of social care funding into the SFA, thus subjecting these grants to the FFR2 process. This means that FFR2 will have a significant impact on local authority funding, which will be difficult to predict and until final decisions on the funding distribution model are confirmed. I would like to emphasise that the full outcome of the consultation and the impact of funding for Herefordshire will not be confirmed until the announcement of the Provisional Local Government Finance Settlement, which is expected in late December 2025. The allocation of the new Settlement Funding Assessment, or SFA, is made up of an assessment of relative need and assessment of the relative resources, and these are the two key determinants on the outcome of FFR2 for each authority. The relative needs assessment determines the share of total need attributable to each authority as a proportion of the fixed pot available. This is driven by the results of a series of relative needs formula which calculate the extent to which a local authority's characteristics are likely to drive demand for a particular service relative to other authorities providing the same service. And the most consequential factors include population cohort size, deprivation-linked metrics, and specific metrics for highways maintenance. The relative resources adjustment is an assessment made by central government of each authority's ability to raise income locally from council tax, informed by the attributable tax base multiplied by an amount per unit of tax base. An authority's share of the fixed pot allocated based on its relative needs is adjusted by the relative resources adjustment to determine the settlement funding assessment allocation. I'd now like to consider the financial context and the potential impact of FFR2 for Herefordshire. The funding received and retained by the Council in 25-26, which is subject to redistribution through the Fair Funding Review, totals £79 million. This is known as the baseline for FFR. This represents funding excluding council tax. Our initial high-level modelling of the implications for the Council has been carried out in collaboration with our professional advisors, and this work has identified that the pure impact of the review for Herefordshire is an estimated loss of £12 million to the total assumed new SFA compared with the baseline for this year over the 3-year period to 28-29. The consultation proposes that allocations of the new SFA will be introduced over a 3-year period with a 33% weighting of the updated SFA in 26-27, 67% weighting in 27-28 and 100% weighting in 28-29. For the Council, this means a reduction in the new SFA funding of £3.3 million, £7.3 and £12 million respectively in financial years 26-27 to 28-29. I'd now like to consider the impact of the FFR2 changes on our estimated funding gap over the medium-term period. The approved MTFS includes an estimate of the Council's net expenditure requirement for future years, which represents estimated costs to support growth and demand for services, inflation and the impact of the pay award. The previously estimated net expenditure requirements totals £257.2 million for 26-27, increasing to £274.6 million in 27-28 and £292.3 million in 28-29. These estimates have not been updated, but will be subject to review and challenge to reflect current economic conditions, service activity levels, and the impact of proposed transformation as part of the detailed budget setting process for 26-27, which is currently underway. Reviewing this expenditure requirement in the context of the total assumed new SFA highlights an increased potential funding gap over the medium-term period of £27.3 million in 26-27, £40.6 million in 27-28 and £54.4 in 28-29, as detailed in Table 2 of the report. The estimated revised potential gap to be funded of the medium-term period is the result of the growth in demand and costs for services increasing at a higher rate than the increase in council tax and central government funding through the new SFA, as shown clearly in Table 2 of the report. As I explained earlier, Herefordshire Council's share of the fixed national pot of funding is determined by Herefordshire's share of relative need. Our review of how Herefordshire's share of relative needs assessment through each formula in 2025 compared with the national average share of our statistical nearest neighbours and the average unitary authority share suggests that this council does not fare favourably from the assessment of relative needs and therefore the allocation of funding. And this is shown very clearly in Chart 1 in the report across seven differing measures ranging from adult social care, children's social care to temporary accommodation, with Herefordshire being approximately 40% lower than our statistical neighbours. The second key determinant of the SFA is the relative resources adjustment, and this is the assessment of each authority's ability to raise income from council tax informed by the attributable tax base multiplied by the amount per unit of tax base, which assumes a national council tax level for a D band is 2199 per tax base unit. In Herefordshire, we have our band D average is 1969. And in 2025, the council's council tax level is less than that assumed in the formula, which determines the relative resources adjustment. The adjustment therefore assumes that the council raises more income from the council tax than it is currently able to from current levels. And this puts the council at a further disadvantage in the allocation of funding through FFR2. Responding to the impact of the Fair Funding Review 2 represents a significant challenge to the council, managing a significant reduction in funding at a time of increasing costs and demand for services, alongside additional costs of delivering services to our rural communities, and it places the council's financial position and resilience under extreme pressure. We will need to prioritise resources and continue to identify efficiencies and savings to bridge this gap through transformation of service delivery, increasing opportunities to recover costs of service delivery, expenditure reviews, and reviewing the size and shape of the workforce to ensure a lean and resilient council for the future. However, we are in a strong position to respond to this challenge. Herefordshire Council, we expect to be the first local authority to have its 2024-25 account signed off by our external auditors Grant Thornton, following approval by Audit and Governance earlier today. And as I reported earlier in the meeting, in-year monitoring of performance against the approved revenue budget for 25-26 identifies a small forecast of net overspend of 1 million, which equates to 0.4% of our net budget after recovery action, together with significant progress in the delivery of approved savings and savings brought forward from previous years have already been made in the first quarter of the financial year. There are robust proven expenditure controls across the council, and effective demand management has had a positive impact on the cost of service delivery. Close monitoring and financial discipline to ensure the delivery of services within budget is exercised through monthly directorate budget boards and directorate expenditure control panels, with oversight of monthly financial position and performance by the corporate leadership team and cabinet. As part of the budget development process leading to the approval of the revenue budget and capital programme by full council in February 2026, a comprehensive review of options to address the funding gap is already underway. And this work will include exploration of options to maximise income from the council tax base, together with commercial activities, continued development of transformation opportunities, review of mandatory and discretionary service levels, review of the existing capital programme and proposed additions for 26-27, together with the identification of directorate savings and efficiencies. The report also includes the outlined budget setting timetable for 26-27, with the embedded table identifying the planned activity and key dates, together with the milestones leading to the approval by full council in February 2026. A key date is that of the next budget, which takes place on the 26th of November 2025. This month, we have or will have conducted a review of activity data and demand growth impact on Directorate expenditure requirements for 26-27 together with the MTFS. We'll review the capital programme and bids for 26-27, carry out identification of savings and efficiencies, and conduct a review of mandatory and discretionary services. In October, we will continue with the development of options to balance the budget and agree our proposed new capital programme. November will see the finalisation of options to balance the revenue budget and capital programme, together with public and business consultation, engagement with political groups, together with the Scrutiny Management Board. December will see the publication of the Provisional Local Government Finance Settlement. January 26 will present the draft revenue budget and capital programme to Cabinet and undergo scrutiny of the draft revenue budget and capital programme by the Scrutiny Management Board. And then in February, we will have the full council meeting to approve the 26-27 revenue budget, the MTFS for 26-27 to 29-30, and the 26-27 capital programme. In conclusion, this report has clearly demonstrated our commitment to transparency through highlighting to Cabinet and the wider community the potential impact of the Fair Funding Review 2 on Herefordshire as soon as it became clear to us. We shall work closely with our two MPs, the Rural Services Network, the County Council Network and the Local Government Association to lobby government in the strongest terms to review their funding review and improve Herefordshire's future financial position. I now call upon Cabinet to endorse the report and its two recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stoddart, for a very comprehensive assessment of the impact that the Fairer Funding Review will have on the medium-term financial strategy and the strategy for the council, the running of the council moving forward. On page 86, where we have the bar graph, the bar chart, where it compares the Herefordshire Council's allocation of funding in comparison to the National Statistical Neighbour and other authorities, we are, on every metric, we are the lowest funded on every single example. That doesn't strike me as fairer funding, if that's what the allocation will be.
I'm referring to it, Leader, as the unfair funding review. Herefordshire is as a rural is 30% rurality. It's recognised. Rachel has worked closely with the RSN, with our chairman. We've made our case very strongly to that. But for some reason, the way that the statistical model that they're using seems to be targeting us. Is it because we're A, rural, and B, we're not urban by distinctive link? Majority, I could put a political hat on and say we're minority blue rather than red, and Labour are targeting urban areas because that's where the voters are. I could be wrong, but there is a bit of me that thinks that perhaps this is what they're targeting. But rest assured, we're working, as I explained, with both MPs and all our organisations, and Rachel is speaking at a convention at the end of next week on the County Treasurer point, and we'll work together to bring as many people together that we can to make central government aware that this is wrong.
And I mean, I suppose the good thing is that we've been given advance warning of what the fairer funding is proposed to be, which gives us time to eloquently point out to government that given the challenges that rural councils face and the increase in demand and the increase in all of the pressures, financial pressures that a council finds, like pay awards and inflation, all of these issues, we have a full economic picture of the council's finances, so we can show to government that the impact of this proposal is going to have dramatic effects on the running of services in Herefordshire.
Very much so. No, of course, the other aspect is they are not considering, as I say, we're the third most rural county in England, and they're not accounting for the delivery of those services and the cost of delivering those services across a very sparse rural area. And that's what we're working with all these lobbying agencies to make that a point across to central government.
Councillor Stoddart, just to finish before I go to any other Cabinet member who wants to speak, it's just very reassuring to hear you say that we start to address this problem from a very strong financial position, and that's something we should not forget. Councillor Gandhi.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it should be called the unfair fair funding review. I think the problem is that those that have made these decisions don't actually represent rural areas and have no understanding whatsoever about what rural areas are like in this country. They have no understanding of rural deprivation. They have no understanding of how difficult it is to deliver services in very rural areas. I represent a rural area, probably one of the most remote areas in the county, and I know that there are people who have taken to social media who believe that rural areas will be, we will reduce services in rural areas more than we will do in urban areas because that's the way it is. And I've sort of tried to reassure people that the decision that we take will affect the whole of the county. The rural areas will not be treated any differently to anywhere else, and we will continue, but it will be difficult. We will continue to deliver the services that we need to deliver in the rural communities that are so important to those areas. And I just think it's so unfair, and I'm so angry that people up there in government who represent urban areas like Manchester and Camden and etc., who will get probably huge amounts of money, don't understand and aren't prepared to come and have a look at places like Herefordshire to understand the rural deprivation that we have here.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gandhi. And you're so passionate about providing services for vulnerable people. I'm absolutely assured that whatever the financial situation, we will continue to support vulnerable people, children or adults. Okay, any other Cabinet members wish to speak? No? Okay, I'll go over to group leaders. Councillor Davis, do you have any comments or questions?
Yes, Leader.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
Yes, the impact of the government's unfair fair funding review to create a potential gap of what, 28 million into our 26-27 budget is very concerning, really very concerning. As we acknowledge, it's important for us to work with our partners and stakeholders to lobby government to address Herefordshire's concern as a rural county which is being badly treated, very badly treated, as Carol Gandhi has just said. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Davis. And group leaders in the room, Councillor Proctor.
I don't have much to add. This is not something that the Liberal Emirates can blame the administration for. This is something that is entirely in the government's gift or not gift. I'm pleased in Councillor Stoddart's report he talked about engaging political groups and SMB in the development of the budget and the MTFS, and I'm sure Liberal Democrats and I'm sure all political groups and also SMB will be very keen to do what we can there. I appreciate Councillor Stoddart's confidence, but I also note that the amount that is predicted to be taken out next year is like orders of magnitude larger than the council has ever taken out in a year before. So I think it becomes increasingly important to focus on what are the key outcomes the council is seeking to deliver and what are the most effective ways to deliver those. But I'm sure the Liberal Democrats will be happy to work alongside the administration on that.
Thank you, Councillor Proctor and Councillor Toynbee.
Thank you. Yes, the Green Group is also looking forward to participating very actively in putting together the budget. 2 months of suspense before the budget. And yes, isn't it all looking unfair? Many of us wondered how realistic it was to base an MTFS on an assumption of a 3.99% increase in council tax. So are you now working on an assumption of 4.99?
Right, thank you for those comments. If I remember rightly, Councillor Stoddard, we said right at the beginning of the report that the original MTFS was looking at a shortfall of 4.1 million, and I think if the financial picture was that, then a 3.99% rise in council tax was a reasonable way to set a levy of the increase in council tax given for inflation. Presented with this picture of a shortfall of £27 million for the next financial year, of course, I think we will have to review the decision to stay at 3.99%, and that's regrettable, but that's a decision that we will probably come to that's not of our making, given the changes in fairer funding, in inverted commas. Right, okay, but didn't want to put words in your mouth, Councillor Stoddard.
Thank you, Leader. To respond to Councillor Toynbee, so last year we had our budget set up until December. We were looking at a planned council tax increase of 3.99%. That was removed from us by central government with the removal of the £7 million rural services grant. And this year, what they've said in the Fair Funding Review 2 is that they expect the minimum level of council tax increase to be 4.99%. No options. That's how they're basing their figures. We are still looking, we'd still love to have it 3.99%, but increasingly it looks like we will not be able to achieve that, and it will be a 4.99%, sadly.
Thank you. But when it comes to setting the budget, we've had, in the last two budgets that we've set, we've had the overwhelming majority of councillors support the budgets that have gone through. And that has been because of the hard work of all councillors that have played a very collaborative approach in making sure that the budget before us is something realistic and something that the council has bought into. And that has relied upon the good work of the Scrutiny Management Board and all of the committees. And we welcome the Scrutiny Management Board's involvement and all councillors' involvement in the budget setting process that will start. Well, it's already started, but it will gain pace as we get to the end of the year in preparation for the meetings where we set the budget in February and council tax in March. So, yes, we welcome all 53 members' input in addressing this shortfall in the funding, and we welcome those discussions, and scrutiny will play a very large part in that, so we welcome that and we welcome those comments. Okay, so we have the reports to agree as proposed. Councillor Stoddard will propose that. I will second. And Cabinet, we have two recommendations, all in approval. Thank you. So we now move on to agenda item 10, which is risk management update, Q1, to provide an update on the status of the corporate risks at the end of Q1, and to provide an assurance that the risks are being managed effectively across the council. The item begins on page 103 of the agenda pack, and I think this time I'll call upon Councillor Stoddard to give the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leader. You will all recall that in June I presented to you the risk management strategy for 25-26. The recently issued LGA corporate peer report states that the Council has progressed with its approach to risk, and it has published a new risk management strategy for 25-26. The strategy is informed by good practice sources, including CIPFA, SOLAS Good Governance Framework. Risks are identified and evaluated in the context of the Council's appetite for risk and risk management framework. This approach identifies a low appetite for risk as it applies to vulnerable people, but a higher tolerance of risk related to innovation. Strategic risks are overseen by the Cabinet and corporate leadership team. Directorates and service areas maintain their own risk registers. The corporate risk register has a focus on children's and adult services, financial sustainability and workforce, and is in line with other similar authorities. This is reinforced by the annual auditor's report presented to Audit and Governance today, which gives the Council's risk management arrangements a green rating, confirming there are no weaknesses in arrangements and no improvement recommendations are made. As part of that strategy, we stated that we would review our corporate risks on a quarterly basis. The report before you today shows that the corporate leadership team and Cabinet have undertaken a review of the corporate risk register, which is included at Appendix A, as at the 30th of June 25, to update risk scores, consider the adequacy of control measures and mitigating actions, and identify new threats and opportunities to the delivery of the objectives and the priorities of the Council Plan 24-28. The revised corporate risk register approved by Cabinet in June 25 included 8 corporate risks. At Q1, an additional risk has been identified and added to the risk register. Corporate risk reference R9 recognises the risk of financial failure of a major supplier to the Council, resulting in disruption to the delivery of statutory services or major projects. There have been no changes to the risk scores for the remaining 8 corporate risks during Q1, and the scores for each of these risks have been reviewed by the relevant risk owner, supported by discussion and oversight by CLT, with 7 highs, 1 very high and 1 medium. In addition to the review of the corporate risk register, CLT members are engaged in activity to refresh directorate level risk registers and embed the revised strategy across the Council. The Council's 25-26 internal audit plan has been reviewed to ensure it is aligned to the refreshed risk strategy and the risks identified in the corporate risk register. The development of a comprehensive risk-based plan ensures that internal audit activities are focused on the highest impact risks to this Council's objective. I can confirm that work continues across Herefordshire Council to ensure that this strategy is translated to the management of risk across services and projects, and that the risk appetite is fully understood and that it drives decision making and service delivery. Activity to embed and strengthen risk management activities has continued throughout Q1 and includes a consistent risk register template to record and monitor individual directorate, service and project risks has been developed with automated links and escalation flags, and this template aligns risks to the Council's approved strategy and risk appetite statement. The testing of populated risk registers to confirm functionality and cohesion with the strategy. And lastly, a SharePoint site and Teams challenge has been established to share guidance, training and enable interaction between risk owners. During Q2, we have planned further activities, and these will include an audit of risks transferred from previously used registers to the new risk-based templates will be undertaken to confirm the completeness of transfer. There will be a moderation of risk scores across service, director and project risk registers, a review and challenge of control measures and mitigating action, delivery of risk management training to the Council's leadership group in September 25, with workshop activity to test the application of the risk management strategy and appetite statement to decision making in respects of major projects, an update of the Council's risk management intranet page, and development of risk management dashboard reporting. Risk management is a key part of the Council's governance arrangements, and the risk management strategy supports compliance with statutory requirements of the Accounts and Audit Regulations 2015. Appendix A details the corporate risk register and shows the 9 corporate risks with details of the risk owner, the risk appetite, the control measures, mitigating actions, the inherent risk score and the residual risk score. I am particularly pleased to see within the risk register clearly linking risks to the Council plan and its 4 themes of people, place, growth and transformation, thus providing a golden thread linking everything together. In summary, this clear report is a good example of our strong governance and demonstrates with full transparency the risks faced by the Council and how we are addressing them. I would like now to invite you all to endorse this report and its 2 recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stoddart. Cabinet members, any comments at the risk of wanting to move on quickly? No? Right. Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Stoddart. Group leaders, any comments? No. Councillor Davis, any comments?
Yes, please.
Yes, go ahead, please, Councillor Davis.
Yes, very much appreciate this and thank you. It is reassuring to see that the CLT and Cabinet are actively reviewing their corporate risks on a quarterly basis, and the creating of the new risk in respect of the financial failure of a major supplier is both timely and appropriate. I look forward to the Q2 report and confirmation that the planned activities have been completed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Davis. And with no other comments or points to raise, I will move that we put that recommendation to the meeting. Councillor Stoddart, you happy to propose? Yeah, I will second. Two recommendations. All in favour? Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is agenda item 11, which is the Herefordshire Suicide Prevention Strategy. So this item is to approve the suicide prevention strategy for Herefordshire 2025 to 2029. This item begins on page 117 of the agenda pack, and I would ask Councillor Gandhi to introduce the item. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm pleased to be able to present the suicide prevention strategy today for your approval. When someone takes their own life, the impact on family and friends is devastating and widespread, with many people throughout their community feeling the aftershocks. Although in Herefordshire, people taking their own lives is relatively low, everyone that does is a tragedy. And what this strategy tends to do is to try to interrupt somebody's suicidal thoughts in order that we could save a life. You will see from the report that we have consulted 34 organisations as service providers. 64 members of the public responded to an online survey. We had 7 people with lived experience interviews, and we engaged through the youth board. We also had a PGC, which was held a few weeks ago. And I'd just like to say that thank you to the PGC, because at the time somebody raised the question as to whether in the slides that were presented, where it stated that the average age of people taking their own life was between 45 and 64, and questioned whether that was an accurate figure. As a result of that, I went back to officers and asked them to check again at the figures, and the more recent figures have shown that actually, and it is in the report, that the most likely people is between the ages of 25 and 44. Now, the reason for the difference is that due to the small numbers, they will fluctuate quarter by quarter, and so therefore, as it stands as of now, the figure is 25 to 44-year-olds. As you all know, I think bringing this report to you today is quite appropriate, in as much as we have the Baton of Hope event a week today, and there will be 60 or more people taking the baton around Hereford to highlight the instance of suicide and how important it is for us to listen to people and to do our best to try to support people who are going through a bad time. We are honoured to be given this chance. There are 20 locations in the whole of the country that have been identified, and we are the only one in the West Midlands. This event started on the 2nd of October in Blackpool, and it will end on the 10th of October in London. We've got over 60 volunteers taking part, and I hope as many people as possible who are available on that day in Hereford Centre will be able to support those that are carrying the baton. I don't think there's anything more to be said about the report itself. I hope everyone has read it. But I think it is really important that we take on board how important it is to not just brush aside when somebody says that they're not feeling too good, they're feeling a bit down, and take notice more and listen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gandhi, for those really poignant comments and for all of the hard work that you've done with your colleagues in reaching out to different organisations and members of the public who've been affected by the devastating effects of suicide. And so thank you to bring all of this hard work together to form this really important strategy. Councillor Stoddart.
Thank you, Leader. I fully endorse this and think it's a fantastic piece of work. Any life lost to suicide is one too many. I think the Baton of Hope coming next week is a great acknowledgement of, again, that outlier that Herefordshire is, adopting and taking things forward. And in my capacity as the chairman of the Armed Forces Covenant Partnership and working with many veterans around the country, we've established lots of outreach areas, encouraging quite hunky guys to accept if you're feeling that way, speak to someone. All it takes is to pick a phone up, speak to someone, and suddenly we've saved a life. And it's very much together with this strategy, which I fully endorse. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Stoddart. Councillor Durkin.
Thank you, Leader. I fully endorse both Councillor Gain and Councillor Stoddart. What I would say in addition to that is it's a very brave thing to do, to address somebody and say, I'm taking my life. It is enormously brave. And what it must be borne in mind also is that it is for different reasons. We have on the chart here in the strategy domestic abuse and financial difficulty, and it can happen literally in a second when somebody goes from feeling not very happy to being dead. It's sad, but we must do everything we can to promote this strategy so that people are more aware of where they can go to address their concerns. Thank you, Leader.
Hear, hear, Councillor Durkin. Right, okay, any other comments from Cabinet? If not, I will go to group leaders if they wish to make any comments. Any comments? Councillor Toynbee.
Yes, thank you for this strategy. It's really interesting to read, and Green Councillors will be promoting it, and we're really proud to have the great organisations that are mentioned in here, like We Are Farming Minds, Bereaved by Suicide, Safe Haven, here in Herefordshire, and the fact that we've got the Baton of Hope coming to Herefordshire is really a testament to how committed and compassionate people here are. So I'm really proud of that. I just make my usual plea about language, that we're very careful about language, and as I have mentioned before, I do worry a little bit about an overemphasis on the word hope, because hope is just a concept, and what about the days when we don't feel any hope? Life is still worth living on the days when we don't feel hope. So I think we have to be careful about a message of life is only worth living if we feel hope. I think that could be an unhelpful message, but otherwise, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Toynbee. Councillor Proctor, please.
Yes, as everybody who's spoken so far has said, this is a very important issue. The figures in Herefordshire are far too high, and Liberal Democrats support the strategy. I just pick up on something that Councillor Durkin said, that this strategy seems very well drawn and is targeting a particular point in people's lives, but there are lots of contextual factors that might affect that, which the council also has influence over, and so I think we should be considering that in all of those other strategies, especially given the conversation we just had about the significant changes to government funding and the impact that will have on council services. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Proctor. And Councillor Davis, do you have any comments or questions?
Yes, thank you. I would like to thank Councillor Gandhi for her work in regards to the suicide prevention strategy for Herefordshire 2025-29. This must have been very, very difficult for you to do, Carol, I have to say. This is a sound strategy that shows that Hereford has a plan to deal with the most sad issues, which is absolutely ageless. And we seek to support this wonderful initiative of the baton being brought to Hereford and moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davis, for those comments. And Cabinet members, you heard the views of group leaders. Did anybody want to comment? I know that I would, in view of what Councillor Proctor has said, this council has got many strategies and focus on the health and well-being of our citizens from the very beginnings, the best start in life, right through their life journey. And I think that more focus on health and well-being as this council develops lots of strategies and policies moving forward and delivers services is absolutely why we must always strive for the best health and well-being of our residents. But there are times when citizens find themselves with really challenging situations, which is why it's absolutely crucial that we have strategies like this. But those points are duly noted. Right, okay then. So, Councillor Gandhi, I'm sure you're really keen to get this strategy approved. Thank you, and I will, Councillor Durkin will second that. So, all in favour of the recommendation? That's excellent, thank you. Right, so you've had your break, Councillor Stoddart, and it's now agenda item 12, which is the Corporate Peer Challenge. So it's to receive a report on the outcome of the Local Government Association Corporate Peer Challenge, which was held on the 23rd to the 26th of June this year, and to approve the Council's action plan in response to the recommendations for publication. So the item begins on page 153 of the agenda pack, and I would ask Councillor Stoddart to take us through the item, please.
Thank you, Leader. Once again, I'm very pleased to bring before Cabinet this afternoon the report on the Local Government Association Corporate Peer Challenge, which took place at Herefordshire Council between the 23rd and 26th of June 2025. The Corporate Peer Challenge forms part of the improvement and assurance framework for local government and is delivered by the sector for the sector. Facilitated by the Local Government Association, it involves a team of senior local government councillors and officers undertaking a comprehensive review of key finance, performance and governance information, effectively acting as a critical friend. The Peer Challenge team spent 4 days at Herefordshire Council in June, gathering information and views from more than 35 meetings, in addition to reviewing a large range of information. In total, the team spoke to around 100 people, including a range of council employees, elected members and external stakeholders. All corporate peer challenges consider 5 core components: local priorities and outcomes, organisation and place leadership, governance and culture, financial planning and management, and capacity for improvement. In addition, the peer team considered the Council's approach to risk, use of data and insight, and transformation. The Corporate Peer Challenge report, which is attached at Appendix 1 to this report, has the overall message that Herefordshire is a good council that is striving hard to improve further. It benefits from a strong sense of place, a maturing political culture and a growing confidence in its leadership. The Council has developed a respected identity amongst partners and is seen as a constructive and increasingly strategic player in the region. There is a clear recognition of the challenges ahead, particularly in relation to transformation, capacity and financial sustainability, and the Council is approaching these with determination and a willingness to learn. The peer team found a council that is self-aware, committed to improvement and increasingly outward-facing. There is a shared understanding of the importance of transformation, and while the journey is still at a very early stage, the council is laying the groundwork for long-term change. The latest Ofsted monitoring visit confirms that children's services are improving at pace and performance in most other service areas is broadly in line with statistical neighbours. The Council's finances are currently in a good base position. There is a need to refresh the medium-term financial strategy and undertake more robust scenario planning to prepare for future uncertainties. The Corporate Peer Challenge recognised that Herefordshire is a rural county with demographic challenges such as an ageing population and inequalities in service access, housing and education. The council plan, with its focus on people, place, growth and transformation, was noted as being well understood and shaped through engagement with residents and partners. The peer team reflected that the council's leadership, both political and managerial, is increasingly confident and respected. There is a level of political maturity with members working constructively across party lines and a strong emphasis on consensus building. The Chief Executive and leader are seen as visible and accessible, and their leadership has contributed to a positive shift in organisational culture. Staff and partners spoke of a more open, listening council that is focused on delivery and collaboration. Partnership working was noted as a strength, with the council engaged in a range of strategic partnerships. Partners were positive about the council's leadership, and the peer team cited the phosphate credit scheme as an example of innovative place-based leadership. Partnerships with the voluntary and community sector are positive, with a desire on the part of the sector for deeper collaboration and involvement in strategic commissioning. Governance is generally strong, with clear structures and ongoing improvements in risk management. Audit and scrutiny have been strengthened. However, while performance management is embedded across the council, there is a need for better data integration and corporate level insights to drive transformation. Transformation underpins the council's future ambitions, but internal capacity needs strengthening to deliver change at scale, especially in digital transformation. The council's financial position is stable, with a positive outturn in 24-25 and a healthy level of reserves. There is a recognition that future years' financial settlements may be challenging, and the council is reviewing the medium-term financial strategy alongside scenario planning to test different assumptions. The team noted an ambitious capital programme, with the need to keep management and capacity to deliver the programme under review. The team also noted that the council has traditionally operated a thin client model, with many services outsourced, but that this is being rebalanced with investment in in-house capacity to support change and ensure more effective oversight. The conclusion of the peer challenge was that Herefordshire Council is a good council with a strong foundation and a clear ambition to improve. It has made significant progress in key areas, particularly children's services, and is increasingly confident in its leadership and identity. The council is self-aware and understands the scale of the transformation required. With continued focus on capacity, data and financial planning, it is well placed to deliver on its ambitions and improve outcomes for its communities. The team identified 5 recommendations which form the basis of the council's action plan. Recommendation 1, transformation. We now need to focus on corporate transformation and provide the resources needed to deliver. Recommendation 2, data and insights. Use of data must be improved so that insights can flow to support improvement and framing the scope of the transformation programme. There are lots of examples where this is taking place elsewhere, and the council should draw on the experience of others to support this development. Recommendation 3, medium-term financial planning. Carry out planned refresh of the medium-term financial strategy and provide some scenario planning for future years. Recommendation 4, internal capacity. Strengthen and stabilise the internal capacity to overcome challenges in the thin client model of delivery. And recommendation 5, working with partners to deliver. Partners are very supportive, and the council can build on this to develop strategic engagement with the voluntary sector and others to help deliver service. It is proposed that progress against these 5 action plan points are monitored through the quarterly performance reports to Cabinet. In addition, the peer team review will undertake a 1-day follow-up progress review visit Not all of the team will visit, but the purpose is to review progress against the action plan, and a follow-up letter is then issued by the team. And the provisional week agreed for that is the week commencing the 23rd of March 2026. I can confirm today that we've already addressed a number of these recommendations. In respect to Recommendation 1 transformation, we have now recruited a Chief Data and Information Officer excuse me, who has started work on our hard aspects of our transformation programme. The same CDIO is also leading on Recommendation 2 Data and Insights. And finally, in regards to Recommendation 3, we have conducted a review of our MTFS, which I briefed you all on earlier this afternoon. In conclusion, we should all take great pride in this report, which shows Herefordshire Council as a good council, and I therefore invite Cabinet to endorse this report and its 2 recommendations.
Thank you very much, Councillor Stoddart. Cabinet members, any comments about that report from Councillor Stoddart? No. Councillor Stoddart has successfully and succinctly covered, not succinctly, but successfully done a summary of the findings of the peer challenge. So thank you for that. Group leaders, sorry, any comments from group leaders? Councillor Proctor,
I will attempt to be succinct. This is good.
Excellent. Right, I think you've set the new standard in the contribution from group leaders. Thank you very much. Councillor Toynbee, did you wish to comment?
Wasn't going to, but just thank you, and we'll be keeping a close eye on those actions.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Davis?
Yes, I think it's very good to have a pat on the back occasionally. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Davis, and to group leaders. I will summarise by saying that, firstly, I would like to thank the Local Government Association. They're an excellent organisation that helps councils through many of the challenges of local government, and their advice is always welcome. They provide help and support in many ways, and going through the peer challenge process, this is another way that they support local councils. And I would really like to thank all of those who those colleagues who visit us to participate in the peer challenge. They worked very hard. They were here for 4 full days, and as you can see, they interviewed lots of people, lots of our partners, and so they worked very hard to come to the conclusions that they reached. So a big thank you to them, and also thank you to all of those participants who they interviewed, and some of those were our partners, external partners, and they played a very important role in making sure that we were properly assessed. So a big thank you to them. But the big thanks really has to go to my cabinet, the chief executive, the directors, the senior management, all of our staff who do the excellent work that they do, and it's gratifying to note that this report highlights and thanks the contribution that all of our staff make to ensuring that we are a council that's good, who is striving to improve. And as Councillor Stoddart says, I think we should be very proud of these findings. So thank you to one and all. And so you're recommending the report and the recommendations, and it's heartening to know that we're already on top of addressing those recommendations. So it's so proposed. I will second it. All in favour? Excellent. Thank you very much. Okay, so we move to agenda item 13. So there is a recommendation for agenda item 13 that under sections 100A(4) of the Local Government Act of 1972, the public be excluded from the meeting for the following item of business on the grounds that it involves the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined by Schedule 12A of the Act. The item discloses information which relates to the financial or business affairs of the council, and so the information is in respect of this claim. The information is in respect of a claim to which the legal profession privilege could be maintained in legal proceedings, and it is considered that the public interest in maintaining this exemption outweighs the public interest in disclosing the information. Can I have an indication from Cabinet members that we continue to now move the meeting to a private session? All in favour that we do that? Thank you very much. So this concludes the public aspect of the meeting today. The next meeting is scheduled for the 23rd of October at 2:30. So can I now